Hi, Ken Donaldson here for another exciting chapter of love and money and emotions.
I'm Holly Donaldson. Welcome. We're glad to see you today.
And we have a brand new episode. And this week, we're going to be focusing in on the attitudes, the differences in attitudes that the couple may have, the people in the relationship.
And coming to an understanding when you have different money attitudes.
Yes, and so we were talking ahead of time, Holly, about some of the predominant dynamics involved in this, and some of the cases that you've seen. And you want to share just a little bit about, sort of give a basic overview on what we're referring to when we're talking about money attitudes?
Sure. Well, a basic common difference that I see is a couple will come in and say one of them is a spender and one of them is a saver. And when we kind of peel back the layers, we see that actually they're both spending, but one may be a more frequent spender than the other. So the saver will save up for big spending. So there's still a disconnect, though, and some fingers getting pointed back and forth about behaviors around money.
Gotcha, right. And as we were talking about this, and we try to bring some real life examples into the mix. And one of the things that came up, we had just recently reviewed our budget, which, by the way, is something that I never used to do. And Holly encouraged me to do it, and now I'm glad I do it. I think I didn't used to do it because I was afraid to. I think that's called denial, actually. But anyways, and one of the things that showed up, one of the expenses that showed up in Holly's more than mine, was she was putting away a pretty sizable amount of money for her car allowance every year. And I asked her about that, and she said, well, I want to get a new car every 5 years.
Yeah, pretty much. I like to buy a new car, and I like to buy a new car every 5 to 7 years. There are different studies that show whether that's mathematically wise or not. I as a financial planner, I really can't advise that. We all know the thing about you drive the new car off the lot and it loses 10%. But Ken, he likes or has bought used, and he drives a car pretty much to the end of its useful life.
Yeah, right now I have a 2007 Acura that I bought a year old, 2007 MDX. It's got about 140,000 plus miles on it. Last car I had was also an Acura. It was a CL. I bought it in 97. I drove it to 2007. It had about 150,000 miles on it. I've had a number of older cars. I had a 62 Chevy and a 67 Chevy. So for me, it's not that important to have the new car and to turn them over every 5 years. But it was interesting as we were doing our budget that we had this realization. And again, part of this was just merely having an understanding. There was no right or wrong or good or bad, or no argument or conflict or power struggle. But it's having this understanding. And so now it's like, okay, that's where that money is going. And gosh, good for you, Holly. It's planning ahead. And so that's an example of one of those understandings. And I guess one of the things couples can do is they can sit down with their spending patterns and or their budget and go through each line item and share with each other what it's all about. What is it that's important about that? And again, the goal is to have an understanding. It really is. You may not agree, but it's about starting with an understanding, because if you don't have that understanding first, it's almost like you're starting off on an unequal ground. Make assumptions and things of that nature.
Yeah, our spending ultimately reflects our values. And when we choose to spend life with someone, we're usually choosing someone who shares our values. And it can be kind of shocking or disappointing to find that in some areas our values aren't the same. But the purpose of our little talk today is to come to an understanding that you probably won't share the same values and that your spending will reflect that.
Yeah, so anyways, we hope that this is helpful and that you'll take some of this and utilize it, implement it in your lives, in your relationship, in your world of finances. And as always, we'd like to give some feedback from you. I'd like to hear your questions, your comments, suggestions, so we can incorporate some of your stories in upcoming editions. So, by the way, in case you didn't notice, Holly, our technical engineer, she has figured out the magic button so she doesn't have to get up. The magic button is right there. It's called a mouse. I'm glad she figured out because I probably wouldn't have. So we're going to sign off for this week, and Holly is not going to have to get up and walk around the table. So we're both just going to say goodbye from the table.
Have a great week.
Bye-bye.